Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In today's video, I will be reviewing this new airbrush from Bucasso. This is their AK-47 Trigger Style Airbrush. And what's really cool about this airbrush, other than the fact that it has a wood handle, which is pretty premium, if I may say so myself, but it comes with three different needle tip sizes. It comes with a 0.3, a 0.5, and a 0.8 needle. Now, you get all of this for right around $50, which is a really great price point for all that you get in a airbrush kit such as this. Before we open this kit up and take a close look at it, I want to mention two things. First off, Bucasso did send me this airbrush for free for my review. And as always, folks, my reviews are totally honest. I don't get paid for them. Secondly, I want to mention also that I have done other reviews of airbrush kits in the past. And like most YouTubers, I would just get the airbrush from the manufacturer. I would check it out, make sure everything was there, run it through its paces, use it. A lot of times I use it on the video here with you folks to make sure that it worked okay. And some of them I use a little bit more than some of the other ones, which is fine. And that's how a lot of people do it. But the problem that I'm having is the fact that some of you folks have purchased those airbrushes in the past based on my review, and I've had a few comments where you've had issues with them. And that really bothers me that you guys spent your hard-earned money and you got something that I said, hey, you know what, this is pretty good, and you're having a problem with it. So with that being said, I'm no longer going to be just opening it up, testing it out, and telling you about it. This airbrush was sent to me by Bucasso a little over 3 months ago. And I told them at that time, hey guys, I'm going to put this in my video stream when I feel it's ready, because I spent the last 3 months running and working the little snot out of this airbrush. I used it for every project that I had to use an airbrush for, just so that I could run it through its paces. And if there were going to be any failures, most failures happen, relatively soon. They would happen to me, which, by the way, I had no failures. And I wanted to get used to using this airbrush to see how it actually worked with the products that I use, so that I could be more affirmative or talk more intelligently about this airbrush and how it actually operated. One more thing I want to mention before we open up this box and take a look at this airbrush. I am going to link a video at the end of this video to where I use this airbrush to paint this 1/64 scale or HO scale slot car body. This thing, guys, has about 20 layers of different types of paints and clears on it. And everything I did on this slot car, I did with this airbrush. And I used all the different needle tip sizes to get this beautiful, actually, paint job done on this little slot car. I did a pearl base coat. Then I also added a metal flake inner coat, a blue metal flake inner coat, as well as candy coats on top of that, and a real thick coating of a clear coat. I should say thick coating. The clear coat's kind of thick. So I was able to do all of that with this one airbrush. Let's take a look at what all comes in this little kit. First off, I want to say that this box is pretty premium. It's pretty stiff, so it seems to have done a good job protecting this airbrush. Also, it's kind of cool, they call it the AK-47, and I don't know if you noticed, but the grip is very reminiscent of a traditional wood-gripped AK-47, and this is a solid wood grip. All right, first thing you get in the box are, of course, your directions. And there are not much to them at all, which actually I kind of like. It's a simple airbrush. I don't need to know a whole lot about it. One side is written in, I believe, Chinese. The other side is written in English. One mistake I did notice on this instruction manual is the fact under specifications for nozzle diameter, I don't know if you can see that or not, kind of a glare, but it says that it's a 0.2, 0.3, and 0.5 millimeter nozzle, when in fact it is actually 0.3, 0.5, and 0.8. It says so on the box itself. Right here. Let me do it so you can actually read it. Right here, 0.3, 0.5, and 0.8. And it also says it on the website. So, every single airbrush kit that's come out of China, the directions, there's always something wrong with them. I don't know if they don't proofread. I don't know if it's just, translation thing, but That's not really a translation thing. That's more of a proofread thing. Okay, then you have a nice little protective cover over top of your airbrush kit. And here is the kit itself. Here is the actual airbrush. Now, as most of my other reviews, I give it a heft rating, and this baby's hefty. To me, if it weighs a decent amount of weight, then you know there are some decent materials used in this. This has a quality weight to it. And again, it has, I believe it's a burl wood. This is their blonde wood. They have different color wood handles you can choose from. Solid wood, feels good in the hand. It really, truly does. And we'll go over the pros and cons that I have found about this airbrush kit towards the end here. But here is the airbrush itself. This is the first thing that comes in this box. You also have 3 different cup sizes. You have a very small cup size, which would be for like detail type airbrushing. You have your pretty well standard medium cup size and your large cup size. As a matter of fact, it's on the box here. I can tell you exactly the capacities. 3 cc's, 7 cc's, and 11 cc's. Oh, and by the way, your working pressure right here says from 5 psi to 50 psi. I usually run anywhere from 18 to 30 psi on all of my airbrushes, this one included. Also in this kit, you get a little wrench to help take apart your tip. Let me show you just real quick. You have a little tip right here that holds that the needle rests in, and this you can use to take this off on all 3 of these different tip sets in order to clean them better. Now I'm putting this back on. I like to pull the needle back so I don't accidentally bang the needle tip and destroy it. Also in this kit you get a little pipette, and here are our other needles. And they are marked on there. This is the 0.5 millimeter. If it will focus, because it likes to focus on everything else but what I'm looking at, right? And this is the 0.8 millimeter. Actually, the 0.3 is in here. I think I have the 0.8 still installed in this airbrush. Okay, the other things you get are your needle tip holders. Again, you have your 0.5, and well, this doesn't blank because I, again, move things around. Sorry. And this is our 0.8 needle. This is not a 0.8 needle. Let's do it right, right? There we go. We're going to pretend that this is the 0.8 tip. This is the 0.5 tip. You know, labels upside down, upside right, doesn't really matter. Anyways, there's your other tips for your other needles. This here is something that I won't use, you may have use for. This is if you need to put this into a hard line, you don't have a disconnect, and you put that on, clamp it under your line, and you can screw this onto the bottom of your airbrush. I have quick disconnects I use on all of my airbrushes, so I don't actually use this. One more look real quick about everything that comes in the kit. You get 3 different needles, you get 3 different needle holder tips, you get 3 different cup sizes for your paint, a wrench, pipette, and of course your airbrush. Now let's move some of this stuff aside here. Let's take a closer look at this airbrush itself. Like I mentioned, this is a trigger style airbrush, and it feels nice and smooth. It really, really does. I have no qualms about that. One caveat that I think would be make this a little bit better of an airbrush, here begins our pros and cons, is the trigger shape itself. I have medium-sized hands, medium to big-sized hands, and I wish this trigger didn't curve out quite as much as it does. I wish it was just a little bit straighter. It would be slightly more comfortable in my hand using it. With that being said, though, the whole time that I was airbrushing with this, I never really noticed it. Just when I'm playing with it right now is when I actually notice it. And to show you real quick this handle, that it is a solid wood. It is not junk. It fits nice and tight. As you can see, this is a solid piece of wood. And the finish on this is superb. It is absolutely smooth as a baby's bottom, as they say. And it's kind of cool that they actually laser engraved the Bucasso name and their little insignia there. I thought that was pretty neat. And you have thumb cutouts on both sides, so for us lefties or righties, it's going to feel comfortable in either hand that you use. So that slides back on, and your full retaining nut goes back on, holds it nice and tight. I'm going to do what I called the squeak test. And as you hopefully could not hear, there was no grinding or squeaking, which means everything was threaded on here nicely, which is very important to me. And yes, this is a preset handle, like in a lot of airbrushes, like a lot of pen or pencil style airbrushes. You have your preset handle back here. Let's take this apart now to take a closer look at it. So here is the back part of your handle, and again, this has some heft to it, and it is nice and chromed inside. That to me shows a bit of care and quality when they take the time to actually make sure the interior of your parts look as good as the exterior of your parts. To remove the needle, you unloose the needle chuck right there, pull your needle out, and yes, this is the 0.8 needle that I have in here. And to remove your needle holder, you just unscrew this. Well, there goes your needle chuck. You unscrew this portion just like in any airbrush, and it all comes apart very similar to most airbrushes. Now, you will notice here that there is a cutout on the end of this, so this only goes in one way. You can't put it in upside down. You can turn it and it slides right in. So that's a good thing. So you can't put it in wrong. Now, as far as the trigger light goes, I'm not even going to mess with trying to take all this apart. Again, there's no need to. As far as the needle tip set here, you have your needle protector here that I always take this off when I'm airbrushing. I know this is a review, but just so you guys know, a lot of times if you leave this on, if you're doing a lot of airbrushing, your paint will gather here in this needle protector, and you do run the chance of when you first start your airbrush and that burst of air comes out, that it will spit off of this and ruin your project. I know that because I've ruined many projects that way. And we also have our little second part of our needle holder here. This is where the air comes in. This is where the needle slides out to mix with the air. Here's that part I was telling you about for the wrench. To take apart, be very careful. This is a very small part, as you can see. Nice thing and bad thing about having this. The nice thing is that it does come apart and it is replaceable. The bad thing is this is made out of brass. This will wear out much faster than a harder metal like some of your higher end airbrushes have. I wish that they had done that, but I understand for the price point you can't have everything. But it is nice that you could replace this. And this looks like it's a pretty standard type of a needle holder that come on many different airbrushes. But I'm going to put that back on just so I don't lose it. But anyways, I only ever take that off if I really need to clean this whole section here. So I don't take it off every time. You just, don't torque it, just nice and tight, just, a little bit, boom, done. And of course this comes off as well. And here is the inside of your airbrush. And that's it. It's all apart. It's a very simple airbrush, which I really like. And as far as changing these needle tip sets go, it's pretty much just, well, you're changing these two parts right here, and that's it. Let's put this thing back together real quick, and I'll run you through a needle change. This is how simple it is to change a needle on this particular airbrush. What you need to do is you take off your handle, loosen up your needle lock, chuck, nut, whatever you want to call it, pull your needle out, take off the whole nozzle assembly in the front here, get the needle and nozzle assembly that you want. In this case, this is the 0.3. Screw that back on. And the nice thing about this, you don't need any tools for this. Everything comes off nice and easy. I have not had one issue with any of these being stuck really tight to the point to where I could not get them off. Take your needle out. They all have nice little protectors on their tips. Very carefully insert that back into the airbrush. Push it all the way in until it's fully seated. Tighten your needle locking chuck nut down. Put your handle back on, and you're ready to go. That's all there is to it. We'll put our little protector on this needle. This is actually the 0.8, like I had mentioned before. We're going to put it back in the 0.8 tube. We'll put away our tip set, and that's it. One other thing I want to mention that I wish they would have done with this kit. It's not a big deal, but just to help me stay organized, I wish that they would have given an empty tube with 0.3 written on it, and gotten rid of just this. I'm sorry, that's not that. Gotten rid of this adapter. Most people will never use this, and actually use this with the 0.3. That way you had a place for the needles where they go in the tip sets, so you're not having to remember, okay, which one did I use? Which one did I put it in? It's a little thing, but that would have been really, really nice. All right, let's check out our cups. Let's see how they fit on this airbrush. That threading feels super nice, as does this one. No issues so far. And the big one, again, everything on this airbrush threads together so well. I do know one thing. When it comes to these cups, one thing I found out cleaning this airbrush multiple times, the lids, they fit real well on the cups, but the lids themselves are very, very lightweight. They're not as hefty as a lot of lids on the higher end airbrushes that I've used. And on the inside, you have your little air hole in the center of these lids. If you can see that real good or not. There's a little air hole right there. I do not know how they put these air holes in these lids. I have a feeling they use a really dull punch, because on the inside of these lids where the hole comes through, it is rough on both of these. And that kind of sucks, because I clean my equipment religiously when I'm using it, and I'm always getting a paper towel caught on this and kind of tearing it and leaving back little paper towel tidbits and dust. That's just something that shouldn't be there. That should be made a lot better. I think this particular one right now is like $48.99 on Amazon, which, by the way, I will leave a link in the description below to this airbrush. I'm not going to complain any more than that about this, because if I even got 2 years worth of use out of this before it started to kind of go crappy on me, it's well worth it for that price to get all of this. And I don't think it's going to go crappy on you. Even if this lid rotted away, guess what? You've got another lid and another cup here that you could use if need be. But for the fact that you get all of this for sub $50 is a pretty good deal. As I had mentioned at the beginning of this video, I used this airbrush for every project I had for 3 months. And I ran all types of paints through this airbrush. Now, they were all airbrush specific paints. I did not try running any craft paints through this airbrush. I wanted to give this airbrush a firm chance to work as it is designed to be used with actual airbrush paints. As I mentioned, I had ran some very thin paints from Createx. That's what I use. I use Createx brand paints, by the way. And I ran some really thick clear coats from Createx, and as well as using their metal flakes, which is another very thick project. And this airbrush, after I got used to which needle and tips, which needle tip and nozzle tip, whatever size I needed to use for the product, this airbrush worked absolutely flawlessly. I have absolutely no issues with this airbrush. It is a real pretty airbrush. As I mentioned 1,500 times, I mentioned again, it works really, really well. And the question that everybody would be asking, would I buy this airbrush? I would definitely buy this airbrush. This works great. It works like it is supposed to work. I have always wanted a trigger style airbrush to add to my arsenal of pen style airbrushes. However, the one that I want is right around $400, which is a bit out of my price range. So I am very happy that Bucasso sent this airbrush for me to review, and I will be using this quite often. Why am I going to use this quite often when I have a couple really nice high-end airbrushes? I have several Iwatas that I absolutely love. Well, I'm going to be using this because the type of painting that I do. I paint, like I'd shown you, slot cars, I paint Hot Wheels, I paint model cars, and using this trigger style airbrush is much more comfortable than using a pen style airbrush for long painting sessions. That, combined with the fact that I also have a 0.5 and a 0.8 millimeter needle and nozzle tip set, means that I'm going to be able to airbrush different product much easier than having to super thin it down to run it through my Iwata 0.35 millimeter airbrushes that I have. The comfort of this over a pen style for painting a model it's where it's at. It feels so good in the hand. This is the part of the video where I'm going to tell you my opinion on who I think should buy this airbrush and who I think maybe should not buy this airbrush. Now, let's start with the should nots. To me, this is a personal opinion, I would not purchase this style of airbrush, not this particular one, but a trigger style airbrush if I plan on doing a lot of fine line artwork, say you want to do portraits on canvases or motorcycle tanks or what have you, even though this does come with a 0.3 needle and nozzle set, which is perfect for that type of work, just the ergonomics of this being a trigger style is not conducive to that type of fine drawing, if you will. For me, I would much rather use the pen style airbrush. It's going to feel more like holding a pen or a pencil or even perhaps a paintbrush in your hand as opposed to this style of airbrush. Not this particular airbrush, just this style of trigger style airbrush. For the rest of us, this thing is absolutely perfect. If you are into painting model cars, I cannot stress how much you need to get a trigger style airbrush. And again, for the price point, this is a good entry into that world. This thing, as I mentioned, feels amazing in the hand, and it paints oh so well. It paints really, really well. So if you're into painting model cars, you need to get something like this if you want to up your game from using rattle cans to an airbrush. This is perfect for that. Along with that, painting slot cars or Hot Wheels or anything along that lines, this is perfect for that type of application. As a matter of fact, this style and this particular airbrush I think would be perfect for any hobby that you're into where you need to put some paint down. Keep one thing in mind though, this is still a traditional style airbrush in the fact of the pattern of how the paint comes out. It still comes out conical shape, starts small, spreads out into a cone shape. This is not a fan style paintbrush that you see like an automotive type of paint or air spray guns. Excuse me, too many things going on in the head here. So even though this does come with a 0.8 millimeter needle and tip set, this is not going to be good for throwing down large amounts of paint to cover, again, like a motorcycle helmet or a motorcycle gas tank. It's not conducive to that because it's not a fan type of spread for this airbrush. That 0.8 only is there to allow a thicker fluid to run through this airbrush than the 0.3 or the 0.5. But it's still going to have the same, almost same diameter cone shape coming out of this airbrush because these are the same other than the opening for the needle. If you want to see me paint this slot car and see how well it came out, check out the video at the end of this video, which is coming up very soon. Also, don't forget, check in the description below for a link to this airbrush if you want to check it out. Like I said, they have multiple colored handles for this airbrush so you can get whatever color you want. Do I suggest this one? I can say without a shadow of a doubt, because I've tested this one, that yes, I would suggest it. Always keep one thing in mind. You're not buying a premium high-end airbrush at this price point, but you're buying a good airbrush. So yes, I can say I would definitely buy this one with my money if they hadn't sent it to me. I'm so glad they did though, so I could check it out, so I could tell you folks that it is definitely worth it. So guys, with that being said, again, thank you so much for spending your time with me. I appreciate it more than you can imagine. And you know guys, God bless and take care.